Thank you for joining us for today's webinar, which is sponsored by G3 Enterprises. We have two of their experts here with us today who are going to share their insights on wine bottle trends and technical requirements that'll help you make decisions on your wine packaging. Now, this webinar is pre-recorded, but the experts are with us in the live chat. So if you have questions at any point during the broadcast, you can put them into the live chat over here and they'll answer them there as we move along. Now with that, let me kick it over to John to get us started.
Hello, this is John Segale, and welcome to our webinar on wine glass bottles as we explore the latest bottle trends and share the essential technical requirements for selecting the right bottles for your wine. Wine bottles have been around for centuries, and while we're all familiar with the traditional wine bottle, the fact is there are a number of hot new trends that are both literally and figuratively changing the shape of the wine bottle. Over the next hour, we will hear from two industry experts about glass packaging, including what we learned from the pandemic, the importance of sustainability in wine packaging, and the technical requirements for selecting wine bottles. And you can ask questions throughout the webinar by clicking on the box below and typing in your question. We will try and answer all your questions during this webinar. So let's start our session today. Joining us are two experts in wine packaging, Susan Owen, Senior Director of Sales for G3 Enterprises, and Dana Abernathy, Senior Manager for G3 Enterprises. Susan has a passion for wine and travel, and she leads a team of wine packaging experts across North America. Dana started his career in chemical engineering and has been working in the wine industry for the past 11 years. Susan and Dana, what can you tell us about the latest in the wine glass bottle?
Hey, thanks, John. Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here today. As John said, it is no secret. I love the industry. So I love that I get to be here and help support your efforts and hopefully share some information that you didn't know and leave you with some topics that at the end of this you can think about and take back to your day-to-day application. So before we talk about where we are today in the wine industry, I thought it would make sense for us to look back at where we've come from. So when we talk about, the traditional wine bottle as we know it, right, our standard wine bottle, there's some things to keep in mind. And I did a little search to try and come up with what's the history. So exciting to think about. The oldest bottle in history is from 325 to 350 AD, and it's called the Speyer bottle, based on where it was found from the town of Speyer, which is now modern day Germany. It is the oldest wine bottle in history. And a fun fact, there is still some liquid that remains in that package because of how they sealed it with olive oil and wax around the outside. So it really created a true seal. Now, I'm sure it tastes awful, but it's something fun to think about as we imagine where we are, 1,000+ years into the future of today. Bringing us to kind of what we think of today as the modern wine bottle. A gentleman named Sir Kenelm Digby introduced glass to the wine industry back in 1633. So when you think of wine prior to this point, we really couldn't use it to store wine because it wasn't rigid enough. It wasn't thick enough to withstand the liquid and the pressure over time. We used the other ceramic vessels, right? We used amphoras, sometimes animal intestines, which we all know about, the way wine was stored. But Sir Kenelm Digby, a scientist, fun fact, his portrait is housed in the London Portrait Gallery, if you're ever over there and want to check it out. But he brought to us the invention of wine. So without him, not the invention of wine, the invention of glass to the wine industry. So without him, we wouldn't have what we think of today as the most widely used vessel for storing, serving, packaging, and wine, which is glass. Another fun fact is in 1821, Ricketts of Bristol received the first patent for what we consider the modern glass bottle. Historically, as wine was being stored in bottles, the bottles were short, stocky, and fat. They weren't the svelte, sleek look that we have today. But Ricketts of Bristol patented that glass bottle machine that allowed us to have consistent, repeatable glass bottles that you can present to the consumer with where we are today. So where does that bring us? That brings us to 2023 in the modern wine bottle. And so before we go into what's a trend, let's talk about what what's traditional, right? So when we think of our standard glass bottles, we have a 750 that's in screw cap and we have a 750 in cork, right? Those are really the worlds with which we live in. Historically, right, we've had this mentality that heavier bottles might lend itself to quality. I'll question whether or not we're going to continue down that path, but that's our tradition. We've also had the idea of 10 capsules really leading the way from how do we close the top of a package, whether it's 10 or others, but 10's been traditional. And then really when you go to a winery, their traditional way you look at it is a different type of bottle for a different varietal, a different wine, a different brand, a different label, right? So many glass bottles represented across the entire winery space. So traditional, and what I'm really excited about is the what's hot, right? What's trendy? What are people doing? How are we trying to lure in more consumers into the wine industry? And so what I've seen a lot of, remember 750 glass is still the main packaging type, but when we talk about how we're drawing new consumers in, the half bottle has become really trendy. And it's a way to get maybe a younger demographic who's not ready to commit to a big 750 ml, right? It allows them to consume in moderation. It gives them the chance to buy a wine without feeling like, oh man, am I going to have buyer's remorse because I have a 750 I have to consume? So it's a way for them to enter into the wine space. We're also seeing a lot more crown caps, right? When you have a new or an emerging brand, again, that maybe is trying to make itself more accessible to a consumer or to a demographic who's not used to drinking wine. Maybe they're more accustomed to a beer bottle that's got the crown cap they snap off. Maybe they're trying to find a way to have somebody feel more comfortable approaching wine as the beverage of choice. So we see a lot of crown caps. One that I saw recently was Martha Stewman. She has a 375 in a crown cap as a wine spritzer, and she's selling it in the retail outlet, similarly placed to beer drinkers, right? As a way to say, hey, look, here's a 375 in a crown cap in a package you're accustomed. So try it out. Another trend that I personally love, I love all things sparkling, all things bubbles. You're seeing, right, every winery right now, almost, get into a sparkling package type. The demographic and the consumer and the average profile of the drinker is really asking for something light, crisp, refreshing. So obviously sparkling fits that bill. And, certainly last but not least on my list, but something that I'm quite passionate about is also the concept of lightweighting glass, right? That is a trend that we are seeing across the entire industry right now for a variety of reasons, but it's one we'll jump into as we continue on in the presentation. Okay, so, what's hot, what's trendy, what's traditional? It comes down to, does the consumer care, right? We're all here because we need to find ways to help each other sell more wine into the industry because that's what we do for a living. So I did some searches on, why does it matter? Why does it matter if we're using a non-traditional package type or if we're using, the traditional package? Well, we need consumers to drink what we're selling, and the way they drink it is we put it into a package. So a recent article by winebusiness.com came out, and I'll just read this because I think it's powerful. So consumers rank taste, recommendations, price, brand, sustainability certifications, and many other factors higher than packaging weight. So it's not saying one's right or wrong, just simply there's all these other factors above and beyond packaging weight, whether lightweight or heavyweight, that help a consumer pick a wine when they're in the retail space or in the on-premise environment. Another quote, so Nicholas Quill, master of wine, works for Crimson Wine Group. He said this: lightweight glass has had a beneficial impact on sales and opened a few doors with cruise lines and airlines that would not have otherwise been available to Crimson Wine Group unless they did lightweight their glass. So again, just an interesting perspective. And when you look through, how do you get the consumer to care, right? It's all about telling your story. How are you promoting what you're doing to the consumer? Is it making them feel connected, to the story behind how you produce your wine? Is it making them feel connected to the idea that you're using a lighter weight eco-flint bottle for environmentally sound reasons? Is it because you want to evoke a sense of traditionalism by using a cork, right? These are just all your choices. But the industry experts, when they talk about driving consumers in, say, tell your story. So that's how, we find out if the consumer cares. They have to feel connected to what you're doing. Okay, so I would be absolutely remiss as somebody who works on the supplier side of the industry if we didn't really talk about COVID, right? We just went through this 3-year incredible, once in a lifetime, I hope, all fingers crossed, phenomena where we really had to figure out how we're going to make things work. And from a supplier side, being fortunate enough to work with over 2,000 wineries, I really felt like wineries and supply chain and procurement adopted this concept of less is more, right? So it was consolidation of suppliers, consolidation of bottle molds and colors, like really making do with how do you think about, do I really need custom fiber for every single wine that I package, right? So really this less is more, and why, right? The idea of this less is more concept was about supply chain simplification. So when you think about simplifying your supply chain, hopefully it makes you think, how do I make my life easier? And what we saw was this idea of domestic manufacturing, domestic repack, and domestic support really taking over because it would help wineries survive instead of waiting on overseas transit, whether it be glass bottles, from China or cork from Europe, whatever it was. Through COVID, we found a way to think domestic, to simplify supply chain. And in my world, right, we adopted the hashtag of California Pure, right? So manufacturing local, support local, warehousing of finished goods local as well. Okay, so when you think about, right, simplification of supply chain, and in addition to it being easier, there's also the concept of sustainability and how does sustainability impact our wine packaging, and really what is the importance of sustainability in wine packaging. And for me, this is something that I'm really excited to see, because I think as an industry we're really trying to adopt ways to be better stewards of the environment and find ways to tell our story and have consumers see that we're listening to what they're asking for and what they're saying. So just recently a really big letter was penned by Jancis Robinson, right, to the wine industry about the Sustainable Wine Roundtable Bottle Weight Accord. So the Bottle Weight Accord is an initiative that was launched with the goal of reducing average bottle weight to 420 grams by the end of 2025. Obviously, that is a huge goal, but it's a way to start and measure how can we work to improve our carbon footprint as an industry. Some really big retailers and some big wine groups have signed on to this bottle weight accord. So Whole Foods, as an example, has committed to reducing when you think of the wine section at Whole Foods, their total average bottle weight down to 420 grams. Naked Wines is committed to this wine bottle accord. The Liquor Control Board of Ontario is saying, hey, for all bottles that are going to be imported into our country, we really want to help support this. Tablas Creek has gotten a lot of press about the work that they're doing to lightweight their glass bottles as well. And just this morning, actually, I was listening to a podcast with Jancis Robinson on Wine Pair 101 and the Wine 101 podcast. And, Jancis herself said, look, I think this is the number one most important thing that we can do in the industry to be better stewards of the environment. And I was really excited to hear somebody with so much prestige and weight in this industry support this effort. So in addition to bottle weight, right, it's not the only thing that we can do. There also, as many of you know, a continued debate about should we capsule or not capsule. And I'm definitely not here to say one way is right or the other, but how do we think about the different options? So, we have basically 3 categories that you can think about this. We have 10 capsules, which is very traditional. The challenge with 10 capsules is they are all made overseas today. So today, 10 capsules are not made domestically here in the United States. They are recyclable, but again, they have to be brought over, whether crossing the Pacific or crossing the Atlantic, depending upon your source of manufacturing. Something else to consider. So still wine polylaminate capsules are made here domestically, which is fantastic, but not all still wine polylaminate capsules are 100% recyclable due to their material makeup. So good and the bad on both sides. And then the third kind of option is, this concept of no capsule or naked neck, right? So do you need a capsule? I don't know. That's up for you to choose in your wine brand and your story. But if you don't have a capsule, you really need an educated consumer who understands that the capsule is more form over function, right? It's more of a way to aesthetically complete the look, of the package, as opposed to providing, right, some seal proof. It doesn't control oxygen. It's to complete the aesthetic look as opposed to have a actual function protecting the wine. One really great example of this is Honig recently launched their campaign of Go Topless, right? It's their way of saying, hey, we are choosing to not use a capsule because for us, we're going to work really hard to educate our consumer that capsule isn't required. And that was their own personal choice, their own personal story that they chose to tell their consumer. And I think they're doing a fantastic job of it. Okay, so above and beyond, right, you have lightweighting of bottles to capsule or not to capsule. There's also some other eco-friendly materials that we have to think about for wine bottles. So a really innovative and new piece in the world of glass is Halo Glass Recycling just opened up in Modesto, California, with the goal of processing 150,000 tons of recycled glass into cullet. Cullet, as many of you know, is the material, if you look at the screen, the picture on the left-hand side, right? So it takes recycled glass and converts it into a form with which we can use to make glass bottles, which are already 100% infinitely recyclable. So every time you make a glass bottle, it can be recycled and turned into, right, a liquid molten form and remade into glass. But the more recycled glass we can get into the production stream, the better off we are in theory. In addition to this, so a new piece of legislation has come out, State Bill 1013, referred to as the California Bottle Bill, goes into effect Jan 1, 2024. We as consumers ourselves are all accustomed to paying CRV on an aluminum soda can or a 2 liter, bottle, plastic bottle. Well, that's coming to the glass world. So the traditional 750 ml glass bottle will have a California redemption value of 10 cents a bottle, and a half bottle of 375 ml will have a CRV of 5 cents a bottle. So again, something for you to be aware of as you think through your story, you think through how you address the soon-to-be effective bill, Jan 1, 2024. And again, last but not least, we have some different options. When you think about glass, we have two different types of, I'll say, air quote, relatively clear glass. We have what's called eco-flint. And I don't know if you can see from the picture, but eco-flint has kind of a slight bluish green hue. So it's not 100% clear. Now, eco-flint is an excellent option for all white wine, especially a Sauv Blanc, but it's not suitable for rosé because when you put rosé that's got that pinkish, kind of peachy hue, that bluish tint that you see in eco-flint has a slight browning effect on your wine, and quite frankly, it doesn't look good on the shelf. However, for any other major white wine brand, it's a great option. The beautiful thing about eco-flint is it allows you to have more recycled content by percentage in the bottle as compared to a traditional 100% clear flint bottle. So eco-flint has more recycled glass content. So again, if you're looking at that statistic, it's a good option to consider from a sustainability standpoint. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Dana Abernathy. Dana, all yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Susan. The trends and the emphasis in the wine industry on sustainability is really continuing to grow. And now you're starting to see some major investment with things like the Halo Glass plant, When I think about sustainability, I like to think in it in a similar way I think about quality. The bookends are probably the most important pieces. So that's selecting a good glass manufacturer, and then you can live the process in your filling location. But really, to get the full story, you need to look at the entire process. So, yes, you need a manufacturer who has an emphasis on sustainability and a mission statement that aligns with you. But really, if you're traveling and you're following that bottle through the whole process, it's going to go from a manufacturing process. It's going to be warehoused. If it's coming to you in packware, it has to get sent out to be repacked, stored additionally in a warehouse, and then come to you. As well, once you start to bring in the individual components of the manufacturing, there can be a lot of different aspects that are touching the true sustainability story. So now you decided you're going to come to a new bottle, whether this is an extension of existing portfolio, a new product, or you're converting existing bottle in your portfolio. What kind of stuff should you look at? So first of all is shape, color, and finish. So whether you're going to do a burgundy, a claret, or a tapered, that's a brand decision. And so you're going to think of things like your brand identity, your brand continuity, and kind of the tradition. What products are meant to be drank out of what style of bottle? And that's how you're going to first pick out what kind of shape, color, and finish. Then you're going to talk about height and weight. And that's going to be, how does the consumer perceive that package? You see a lot of momentum and emphasis on lightweighting bottles. One of the things I want to bring forward is that lightweighting bottles is two things. It's relative and it's iterative. So if you are currently an 800-gram package, I don't think anybody is expecting you to look at a 400-gram bottle. Really, it's hey, I'm in 800. How do I move something that still has the brand identity of my package, but I can lightweight it over time and become more environmentally friendly? Third is component fit. So a lot of the times when we're launching a package, we already have some of the components where we want to have a component share. So what kind of things do I want to think about when I'm looking at my new bottle? So the first is going to be the interaction with the label. Labels on wine bottles are meant to fit in a specific label panel, which is an area that starts just below the shoulder and goes to just above the heel. And it has a specific height that's recessed into the bottle that's going to prevent wear or damage in the supply chain for that bottle. Second, you're going to think about the cork. Cork bottles are meant to have a specific amount of ullage or headspace, and that is controlled partly by the bottle in the interaction with a specific cork length. So you're going to want to make sure the capacity on the bottle is aligned with whatever current cork or cork you're planning on using. Last is going to be your capsule. So as it's going over the package, there's going to be different styles of bottles where it's a specific length. It's going to be a specific material potentially governed by the size of your drip board, or it could be a specific taper angle. You need to make sure you have a compatible capsule that's going to fit with the bottle you've chosen. Lastly is the overall package look. When you're looking at a bottle, I recommend everybody we talk to mock it up, get some samples, put a label on it, cork it, cap it, whatever it's going to be, and look at the whole package together, because that's what the consumer is going to see. So if you want to really decide what bottle to go with, you need to have a consumer view of what that bottle is going to look like as you're making that decision. Perfect. And then opening a bottle of wine is still an experience. Unlike other packaging events, opening a bottle of wine is a true event. And so when you think about the sensory experience, you have the front end, which is the looking at the whole bottle, and you have the back end, which is the smell and the taste that the winemakers work so hard to maintain. But what happens in the middle? So let's talk about both sides on a cork and a screw cap. So on a cork, you're going to have the combination of a component, which would be a cork. You're going to have the application of that cork into the bottle, and you're going to have the interaction with the bottle neck in the bore profile. So the component, you're going to select your cork. There's a lubricity component on the coating that goes on the cork, and that's going to control the feel when you're pulling that cork out. From an application standpoint, fortunately, cork is not overly difficult. You just need to make sure you have the correct jaws, you're compressing to the correct diameter, and you're pushing in to the correct height on your application unit. And then from the bottle perspective, you're looking at the bore profile. So this bottle in front of me, it's designed specifically to have between an 18 and a 19 millimeter opening. As you're traveling down the bottle, they're controlling 45 millimeters down the bottle. and it has a slight A shape to it. So it has a slight taper going out. There's some things you specifically control in the glassmaking process, be it you can't have a diameter lower than your initial diameter because you need to make sure you're able to fit a fill tube inside, and you can't have too much ovality to it. So the out of round cannot be more than 1 millimeter as you're traveling around the bottle as well. And those things all come together to the experience of opening the package as well as maintaining the integrity and preserving the wine you've put inside. Screw cap, it's a similar aspects, but it's a little bit more complicated. You have the screw cap component, you have the application, and then you have the finish dimensions and the sealing surface on the bottle that it's interacting with. So the component is going to be a G-twist cap that goes on the top. As it's interacting, your application has three main aspects to it. So you have a vertical component that's adding your reform. You have a thread roller who's coming in and it's tucking metal inside of the threads on that. And that's what's keeping that reform and maintaining that pressure. And then you have a pilfer tuck that's coming in. The pilfer tuck, really all it's doing is tucking the bottom piece and making sure it's maintaining your tamper evidence. So on the glass itself, you have the finish dimensions, which are controlled by typically a GPI 1680 finish. So it'll be universally accepting a G-twist cap. And then you have a sealing surface. You want to make sure you have a flat surface all the way around that's contacting the top of that bottle where it interacts with the liner. So it's specifically covering and controlling the OTR. Now we'll move on to just the closure in general. And we talked about doing the bottle, but as I said, no component decision should be made in a vacuum. So when you are deciding what bottle you're using, you want to be very cognizant of the cork you're using. It could be a Dion technical cork at a certain length. You're going to want your capsule, or if it's a screw cap, knowing what you're going to use for that cap. And look at the whole package together when you're making your decision on component. So G3 is here to supply end-to-end capabilities. So we have complete supply chain solutions in the beverage, food, and ag space. We have collaborative partnerships. We've talked about some of the partnerships we have in the glass industry, as well as other areas of business. We have industry expertise. Internally, we have a highly trained sales team, as well as technical experts behind them to help answer any questions you can have. Maximize efficiencies through our supply chain. We talked about we've very intentionally put our repack and our warehousing 5 miles away from our glass supplier. We are taking it straight from the manufacturing to a repack, and we're storing in that same warehouse to use our logistics to take it to your filling site. We've made very intentional decisions of what we're putting where to make sure we're maintaining and streamlining that process. And lastly is our technical services. A lot of the times when you're interacting with a company, it's unfortunately because you're having a quality issue. More on the proactive side is a technical services, which is a team of individuals highly trained in the label, cork, screw cap, and just wine bottling processes in general that are able to come to make sure you're set up correctly beforehand. Treating stuff retroactively is never a good sign. So we've put an emphasis on being able to set and support people before they get into trouble to make sure everything goes flawlessly.
Hey, thank you, Dana. That was great. So first of all, thank you everybody for joining. What I'll add is, we at G3 really strive to meet your needs, right? And I'm very fortunate that I have a wonderful team behind me from both the sales and operations standpoint. So, we do have glass wine bottles in stock and ready to ship. So we have content case bottles that are packed out on the floor and available. We have a wide range and assortment of, yes, lightweight bottles, but we have also ultra premium wine glass bottle options if that meets your brand profile. You can read here, but we do have 6 molds under 420 grams, which is really exciting for me, especially as the industry really wraps their hands and their arms around this. Everything we sell is made in the United States. Our lead times are incredibly short. And if you need full truckload, we have shipping partners, as Dana mentioned, within 5 miles of where we are located to meet your needs and really control the whole process from end to end, from manufacturing to ensuring not only do you receive your bottles from us, but you get the technical support from both our sales team as well as our technical services team. So thank you very much. And I hope you guys have enjoyed and have learned something today.
Well, thank you both, Susan and Dana. That was terrific. We've got a couple of questions I hope you can hang around and answer.
Absolutely.
The first is, do you have experts who can talk to me about the various bottles and styles to help me decide what's best for my business, or do I need to come in and just place an order?
So we have people both on the sales side that can help you choose glass bottles based on your brand choices, from a weight standpoint, cork, screw cap. But I'm also really proud to say that we have Dana and his team from an operational and technical standpoint that can help evaluate, what do you need from a technical specification standpoint? What is your label panel that you need, like Dana mentioned, to ensure a smooth, seamless process? So we have people on both ends, sales and operations, to support you.
Okay. And is it best for me and my winery to be a certain size, to reach a certain size, to really benefit from working with G3?
No, absolutely not. So we at G3 work with over 2,000 different wineries. So we have a plethora of experience regardless of the size or the volume that you produce year over year.
Terrific. Terrific. Well, again, thank you both for spending time with us today and sharing this information. It is so valuable. And for our observers, if you want to order or learn more, visit g3enterprises.com. Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thanks, John.
Thank you, John.